Today, we're talking about groups. Day 5 of our challenge for charity, right? And so as we get into the weeds of where do we put people after we figure out, okay, we're going to build a funnel. That was all what we did yesterday with Phyllis, right? And her entrepreneurial journey. Well, today with the Divine Sorcerer, Mike, we're getting a group set up. So this way there is a place to put people. So as they get invited off of YouTube, they get invited out of emails, they get invited out of all of the places we hang out in Facebook, it gives them a place in a community center to start going, right? And it's a nice open format. You're making it a public group, as far as I understand it, right? Tell me about some of the goals that you have for this thing, right?
All right. Well, I want it to be a group where they can come and, like, if they're not too sure about sorcery or necromancy, or even the paranormal, that they can get some insight, like a guide. You know what I mean? Like, they get it's not enough information that's going to overwhelm them and scare them away, but it's going to inquisitive them to look further in. I want, people that are going to have an open mind and get past the dissonance, start learning about the 7 hermetic principles and astrology and how they relate to your body, and how, Mother Earth through her herbs can, according to what time of the planet, you can heal yourself like this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an experiment. I did this 2 years ago. I started my journey. Now, I'm a person, everybody knows I have heart disease, I have scoliosis, I have degenerative disc deterioration. I've only got 3/4 of a heart. Like, like I was on 9 different medications. They had me taking all kinds of shit, especially opioids. And so 2 years ago, I quit everything. I started using plant substance. I found a plant called kratom, which is Mitragynous spicosia. And I found that I could take this plant and I wouldn't get all, like I would with the damn opioids. And then I started thinking, well, what's this doing to my liver compared to what these are doing to my liver? Because these are destroying my liver and kidneys. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then I looked into the kratom, and here it's beneficial to my digestive system. It's actually good for your body. And I'm like, all right, so what are alkaloids? What are flavonoids? Like, what are these things? So I started to look into these things, look deeper into the chemical of the plant and stuff. I want this to be a place where people can come and be like, here's truth. Here's why sorcery works, or here's what necromancy is and what it does. And here's the paranormal straight in your face. Like, stuff's moving, things are appearing, you're hearing, you know what I mean? Like, this page is going to give you the truth without all the bullshit added into it. It's going to have science, astrology, like none of the, oh, we don't want them to know shit. No, you have a right. You're going to know.
That's good. That's good. So over the last couple of days, right? We did part of it on day 1. We did part of it on day 3. And now today is day 5. We're making pieces of a larger ritual, right? So one of the things that we're doing over the long term with the academy, and as we get into the next levels of your teaching, because you've already spent 9 months, now you're comfortable with magic. Now you love this stuff so much, you're dedicating a group to it. Like, you're going all in. Like, this is fantastic, right? And so as we get into those next steps, we're going to get into the layers. We're going to get into the levels, as it were, right? Now, this isn't how everybody structures their practice, or how, this is just how we do it here. It's modeled off of the same foundation of the 7-level principle that you get over with the Gray School of Wizardry, right? Because I want students that are going to go from that to being able to go into this. But I want it to be done in a way where you're going away from secular behavior and you're getting into the specific weeds of the practice, right? And so it's not, again, this isn't a sales thing, but this is a developmental thing. Like, as you go and you make these groups, we're going to get a funnel built up for this group eventually. We're going to get that reinforcement of, these are the sales, these are the lead magnets, these are all the businessy aspects to building out a community center where this Facebook group acts as a foundation for it. So that as people goes through those gates, right, it's a trusted set of sources. The people that we allow to post in there, or the material that gets posted up in there, it's reliable, it's viable, right? There's an event that I'm going to start working out how to bring to towns, and I want to call them the hobnobs, right? So think about these like parties, right? Where you smoke a little bit of weed or you have a little cocktail or whatever it is. And we used to do these in industry things. It was a pop-up speakeasy event. Okay. This is back in Vegas when I lived out there. And it was industry only events. So you had to know who was who in order to go to this fucking swanky party. There was a theme every month that they did this thing, right? One year it was wacky pants. Like you had to have like the just crazy looking pants, right? There were all sorts of shit. And then another one was the Frank Sinatra lookalike party. So you had to dress like the 1930s, like mobster style, like the hat and the suit and the tie, like, and it was served in a speakeasy. So like there was the button that you hit and you went through the secret door, like it was a whole thing, right? So I want to partner with one of the companies here in town. There's a up at the UTC mall, right? They have a liquor store that also has a speakeasy in it. It
Okay.
opens up after 4 p.m. And so I want to call this event the Hobnob, where it's a mastermind at the secret speakeasy, but it's a pop-up mastermind that goes to different cities in different speakeasies to play with that culture of like the clandestine mastermind meeting, but to be able to do high business concepts, to be able to walk out mastermind principles in a fun event setting, so that as people are hobnobbing together, they're able to have a purpose and a reason to go back into Facebook communities or the LinkedIn communities, or to connect with people that are, you know, outside of just that singular event. You go to the event, you get invited to the Facebook group. The Facebook group allows you to connect with the people over the long term, and then boom, we get enrollment theory in action.
There you go.
So we have in-person events, we have online groups that are now expanding, because as Phyllis grows her group, as you grow your group, you know, as everybody's groups start coming together around this concept, we're able to connect the stages, we're able to connect the dots, and we're able to do it ethically without having to be salesy. It's just that is a very content heavy marketplace. It requires us to figure out other ways to monetize content or other ways to get membership to these kinds of things, right? And so if we're going and setting up these kind of not hobnob parties, right? We do it at the big conventions, then I'm going to charge for ticket cost. I'm going to make you buy a ticket before you come to the event, so that way I know I can put on a really swanky event. And then we can use the money for charity. We can use the money raised in collaboration and joint ventures. But the goal is that once you go in and buy into this program, right, that you're not going to be nickel and dimed until you get other people to like do that to you. Like that's not what this is about. It's like it's a one-time fee and lifetime service. You know, you go in there, you do your thing for the business, you do your paperwork or what have you when we get it all set up. But the business that you get to develop, the goal is a partnership, not just a once-off, right? We're after the lifetime relationship of a client. So it's not about that loss leader. It's not about the time spent on a challenge when money wasn't driven at the bottom line right away today. All right. It's about how are we using this information today to serve us for the rest of eternity. Right? How do we use the information and the challenge structures today to future plan and to prepare for what's to come? Right? So this is where, again, we go back to what we were doing on day one when we started taking notes of what we want, right? Again, this isn't about getting you those, that first day was the blessing and what are you going to give to the world? What are you going to do in return, right? Third day is let's get into the levels. Let's get into the weeds. Let's get into like each of the pieces, right? As we get into each of the pieces today, you're getting, we did a pre-exercise beforehand, so that way we could have a little bit of this stuff ready to go and ready for people. but you find one word that corresponds to each of those 7 steps, those 7 pathways that you could have open to, right? Why did we choose 7? Odd number, funny number. Oh, it's the number of life. That's why. What are you dedicating to your path of life? That's why we chose 7, right? You can go 9 for reflection. You could go 8 if you want transformation. You could do all sorts of stuff in there. You could make it however long you want, but that's not the point. The point is that you have one word concepts that you can dream on, right? So take that piece of paper, right? If you want to share it with people, what your goals are for this group, I welcome you to do that. You go ahead.
Let me find it. Just 7 single words.
Yeah, just the 7 single words. That way it gives people an idea of what they'll be up to and why they
Discover, recognition and awareness, feeling, sight, failure, subconscious, and truth.
Okay. Now fold up that piece of paper. Now, in the Codex, Volume 1 and Volume 2, one of the first books of witchcraft that I ever wrote on, right? There's a bunch of crazy shit in there that I wouldn't actually recommend people to follow. That's why I don't recommend it generally as a book of magic. It's just a bunch of early work. There are a list of the muses in there in the ancient world. And we've already gone through, and since you decide you wanted to do the true histories of things, right? So that's Clio, CLIO, right? Write that name on the outside of that little envelope you've created.
Okay.
Put it between your hands. Ladies who inspire.
Ladies who inspire.
Work both noble and dire.
Work both noble and dire.
I give you the things
I give you the things
I offer,
I offer,
so that we may join in our desire.
so that we may join in our desire.
Feel that?
Paper's getting on.
Yeah. Put that piece of paper aside for the next 6 months. We'll come back to it. But don't look at it. Just put it aside.
Okay.
All right. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring down that muse. You've invited it down, right? Naming the forces is a lot like that thing we did with Themis, where you were able to see from the bifurcation of the mind in all the different places in the universe where the mind pops out in the singularity, right? It's like trying to look at the mind through a wormhole where there's the spaghettification and there's like the body over here, the body over there, the particle over there, and it all connects together. When we name these things, we can call that version Themis, right? But when we connect inspiration and we connect meaning to these things, we can call that a muse. We can call that our source of inspiration. And so we pull these intangibles, these secondary concepts up out of the meanings we're looking for. And so as you create that blessing, as you create that offering, right, that becomes a pact of service. It becomes a relationship between you and the intangible, you and words that you've set forth to make, right? It's witchcraft. It's necromancy because you're calling upon the spirits of things that were never alive in the first place. So technically, if they're never alive, they're not really dead either, but they're not dead. They do exist, right? So you're giving it form, you're giving it a structure. And so for you to know that spirit in the way that it illuminates what is the spirit of history, right? Because Clio is a muse that inspires history in all the ways that history gets inspired, right? how you're looking to change history, how you're looking to inspire others, how you're trying to get people past their fear and their bullshit and the rhetoric and the dogma. That's what you need to dream about. That's what you need to be inspired to do with a passion that gets you into moving forward beyond the pain, beyond your body doing what it's doing, right? You started the day telling us about all of your physical problems, right? I've seen you spend more hours dedicated in passion to the shit you love to do because your mind was in the right spot. Your heart was in the right spot. What's left of it anyway? You know?
No, I tell you that God's sustained me and blessed me. I'm not kidding. Like they, yeah, they're great.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I work with them. I work with these energies. That's sorcery, necromancy, the paranormal.
That's right. Notice you mentioned. Oh, excellent. Yeah. So I'm trying to get Justin into the group.
Okay. Yeah. Bring 'em in. There's still people that have. I invited Dan, I think. Steve.
Great.
Let's figure out how to set up.
So what I'm doing now is I'm just confirming with Justin about him getting here.
Okay.
So I sent him the Google Drive content last week before we got started, and I sent him the Zoom information before we got started, and he's asking me about those very things that I sent him Friday
Gotcha.
last week. So for new and early stage entrepreneurs, setting up stages is reliant on timing mostly. Is it a good time for you? Is it a good time for the other person? Does it actually work out? Is it going to be a scheduled thing? Is it going to be a structured thing? Is it a purpose thing? These
Right.
are the developments of what it is that allows us specific connection points. And even when an appointment is missed, even when an opportunity is passed by, you've got to look at it like, what was the reason why it didn't work? Right? What was the reason why there was not a connection made? What
Right.
did you say that didn't connect the right way, land the right way, do the right thing in order to get those next things done, right? And this is part of what it is to do with the entrepreneurial journey, right? So as you build a stage, as you build that group for new people in the occult that are trying to get through, or they need a resource and they need that activity, right? They need that, like the brotherhood, we needed that, right?
Right.
As we're going into this with other groups and other communities, we're going to also need to schedule time to speak with those group owners, right? To give them a platform to say their challenges. What have they struggled with? And what can we help them with? What can they talk about in our platform on your stage in this group that they might not be able to talk about in their current group? What kind of things would you invite them to do?
Post, whatever, post their content.
Right, but there's like we have to aim at specific kinds of content. Like that level 1 stuff is like, what are just the requirements of the aspect of your spellcraft, right? What is the ritual of your spellcraft? What is the repeated action as required by it? What happens when you put repeated action with one-time use stuff, right? Like the spell itself goes one-time use, but what happens? What's your setup for it? What's your breakdown for it? What's your, you know, your cleansing rituals, your banishing rituals, those kinds of things. Right. But those are specific examples that you have to, when you say you want to get them to post, you have to be specific. You see? That was one of the big things about getting people active in the Brotherhood was they need to have a specific topic to post on. If they're not going to general post, because there's too much general shit out there, right? So if you get specifics, like today we're doing the banishing thing. What's your banishing spell for the day, right? That's one example. But it's got to be a specific method. It's think about it like spellcraft, right? The thing you post is going to be the spell, or it's going to be the report on afterwards. Right? Is it before your spell is cast initially, like if you're going to test something new, or is it something you've already done several times? Like, is it a new thing or is it an old thing? What's the story behind it? Introduce it a little bit, get a little bit of a structure going for the type of presentation that you want people to do, and then you teach them how to do it, and then you pin that to your top post. Right? So it gives them form and understanding for the content. You can post a poll up at the top for the kind of content that they want. Do they want more how-to, or do they want just the raw spells and like, boom, there they are?
Well, no, that's too easy. I want them to do the mathematical equations according to the times of, like, I want them, you know, like King Solomon did, hence my mentor. He made sure, like, you know, I mean, I want them to be able to present it, see results. Like I was able to take Robin out and be like, hey, I need wind king. You know what I mean? Like, results.
But you followed a process to get that. You made
Yes.
a call. The spirits had an action. They knew what they were supposed to do when you made that call, right? To be able to do that and to be able to have that kind of results, that's where the academy comes in, right? If they're not getting that kind of change, well, then that's what kind of stuff that they can be taught and instructed on. Right? If they need to get that initial win, which is all what we're talking about for this academy, all the things that we're doing is this very specific, like get your first spells done, right? You're doing justice spells, you're doing wind magic, you're doing weather magic, you're doing, you know, you've got the knife in the pot to deter the weather that's attacking your house. Like, you're doing these things. It's stacking up and it's becoming part of a regular practice. But in the beginning, people need to be comfortable casting their first spell. They need to be comfortable saying, if I say, follow me with these words, you're not going to give me shit when I tell you to follow along. You just say the thing and magic happens, right? We need to get you to the point of creating your own word behind it. You know, it's like when you created that divination blessing, when you put the cards between your hands and you came up with that, and you do that as a way to connect to the moment and the cards and to separate yourself from normal reality, right? If you're speaking your spell in a specific rhythm, iambic pentameter, or all sorts of different ways you can structure speech patterns, right? But you can do it in writing. You could, if you're creating a poem, right? For example, if you're not doing a normal speech, you're dividing your speech out. And by dividing your speech out, you're able to speak with a power that you don't otherwise have because you speak in a new and alternate way. You're now able to speak in the spirit language, right? Because you're dividing that out. And if you can get people to recognize points in their divisions through discussions that you have about it, through the principles of mentalism, because there's 7 principles that you're going to go deep in, right? So there's going to be 7 levels of the community. how are they applying each of these things, right? You were talking about it the other day firsthand, the experience of one of the laws of mentalism. Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's basic meditation. Like it's getting your chakra in line, getting your milk and honey flowing through your caduceus. Symbolize with me here, guys. Like, once you get into a comfortable place where you can just relax your body, you're healthy, you're just, putting everything into synchronicity. Mentalism is a place to where you can shut out vision, your everyday tool that you use over, like most people take for granted. But you get into a realm where now you can smell things, now you can feel things, now you can hear things. Your senses become much more than just sight. The mentalism is how you set your mind's eye in correctness with your body. It's almost like chi, yeah. It's walking into a room and your hair standing up on end because you feel the energy that's around you. It's a certain conscious awareness. That's what the 7 hermetic principles are for. So you understand these things.
It's great.
So when you walk into your kitchen and something flies, hey, there's an energy there. It's trying to get my attention, not, oh my God, it's a ghost and it's gonna attack me. Like, that's why the group I have is sorcery, necromancy, and the paranormal. So people understand this. Their shoulders start flapping and
That's excellent. That's excellent. And, one of these things that we've got that we're doing is part of the developmental process of the individual is to show that the work that we do gains traction, and that by intentionally structuring the thing that we did on Monday or on Saturday, right, with the beginning of the blessing, to get you thinking about how you can receive and you can give, right? All week we've been giving information, we've been giving tips, giving structure, giving advice, giving content. But it's through that process of the giving of the information freely and unrestricted that allows for us to get into these dialogues where it becomes a larger conversation.
Right.
Because the conversation that we have now, and we get into about the weeds about these things, right? After we're done with the challenge, I have a meeting with a designer in the Netherlands to see about how we can get our work over there and help her out. And then afterwards, after that, there's a fellow named Ken who's got that mobile studio device. And I'm going to have a meeting with him about a partnership deal so that way when we're going through and offering these big business clients of local influencers, or we run out this influencer academy training program, right? That becomes part of their finance box, is they're going to get that mobile studio as part of their enrollment package, right? So a $50,000 enrollment package gets a $10,000 mobile studio, right? And then how are they financing it? Well, that I have a financing company for it. So as soon as I pay them the $500 for their initial fees, then we have a mobile, they just have to use their credit.
Right.
They can finance the entire education, get all of the materials up front. So that way, all they have to do is get trained on how to use it. And then it gives me a reason to talk to Dean and Tony about getting free memberships for a year package set up. Gives me a reason to talk to Bill Gates about building a custom computer the same way Alienware did them for gaming. But we do it for a specific thing for entrepreneurs so that all the fucking software doesn't lag our computers. We can do the video editing that we need at a high power and performance thing. And we can also just have Zoom already installed. We have Mastermind as a desktop application. So, and all the content and course creator videos from the best in the marketplace with requirements saying that you have to make $10 million more in your program in order for it to be part of the process, right? That way people actually have a high goal to listen to. But through the academy, we provide their first win. We provide their first foundations. It's like, you don't have clients. Like Phyllis didn't have a client. She was trying to build a funnel. She didn't have a client. Like, why are you trying to get a funnel when you don't have somebody that you're teaching that you can fill a funnel with content for?
Right. Right.
It becomes easier when you start teaching people in the beginning to have people like you and Daniel who are willing to talk about this stuff, who are willing to get up on the camera, regardless of what the topic is, as it relates to the things that you're interested in, right? It's the witchcraft,
Exactly.
it's the sorcery, it's the magic, but there's also the business of magic, right? And there's the magic of business, right? Those two are linked inexorably because it's a form of service. It's a way where you can take your spiritual principles and stay in congruency with those and walk them through your entire life in every aspect, right? So long as your stuff aligns to your passions. Now,
Mhm.
one of the reasons why it's important to grow with other mentors and other leaders and these things, and I'm not talking about just what I'm doing here with you guys, and but also as you become leaders and as I seek other leaders to bring in, there is a way we have to work on balancing those darker aspects of nature with the beneficial aspects, right? So there comes a point in life when respecting our parents also requires us to overcome those points of darkness in our own lives, right? That period of separation when, yeah, they may not have been the best people growing up for you. Yeah, there might be some darkness there, right? But at the same time, you're also in life together. So there needs to be an honoring of, like, if you've got mother issues, right? Like I've got that in spades, right? But it's still a figuring out a way to honor the dark feminine without being abused by it, right? How do we give reverence to these forces that are at play in our very lives, giving respect and honor where it's possible? What resources can we create for those without having to deal with it directly? So that way, as it requires us to act in ways that are obviously mature, right? Because we have to overcome our hatred of that situation. And the fact that at the time we didn't have a better way to process it, that we didn't have a better language for it, that there wasn't a understanding of shadow work back then that was, essentially state mandated shadow work. Like, how would that be it for, like, you're a bitch, the state tells you to go? No, we can't do that. Like, no morality police, please. Like, none of that.
I just went through 8 months of shadow work. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah. Shadow work is not easy.
No, it's not. And that's the hardest thing to do, and to do alone when it comes to your practice, because the easy thing to do is to just say, okay, yeah, there's a problem and I'm not going to deal with it. Right? But if you face that problem enough and in enough situations, you're going to realize that it's your fault that those things keep happening to you.
Hermetic principle cause and effect.
Right.
Hello.
So as you can live out the Hermetic principles and live out the recognition of them, right? These become topic points and posting points. This becomes, what are we talking about on Monday? What are we talking about on Tuesday? What are we talking about on Thursday? So by the time the week is over, we've covered some spell, some method, some meditation on each of the 7 principles. But it's scheduled out for days that we focus on. That way, no wasted effort. So that way we know what we're going to do on Monday. We know what we're going to do on Tuesday. We know what we're going to do on Thursday, right? But we know those because that's the form our particular connection to divinity decided to take when it comes to us walking out our purpose, just because that's what it means to be in rhythm with the life and the whole thing, right?
Synchronicity.
Right. But it's unintentional. It's a natural byproduct. And that's how you know you're in this kind of rhythm, is if this shit is just a natural byproduct. Like, you don't have to intend for this stuff. It just happens, right? You shuffle the tarot cards. Oh, it's the same card as yesterday. Still in rhythm, right? Still in that same energy flow, still that same vibe.
Grab a towel off the counter and 6 cents falls on the floor. 6 cents, 6 cents. You can't make this stuff up. Like intuition, like synchronicity.
Right.
Just learn to recognize it when it happens. Like just, and you get good at that by knowing the symbolism. Like the Egyptians left a lot of that behind. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
yeah. And so
learn a whole new language. And you can understand that language and how it works and like the culture back then and the true, we go back to the true history, you know. Like I've always said, we have like pseudoscience and pseudo history today. Like those who win wars write history. So you're not getting the right history. But when you find it, you get your third eye open, line of shot is a whole new world, man. Whole new world.
yeah. You know, and that's the best thing about, you know, like the history today is that you can dig out Zachariah Stitchen's work, right? He spent his entire life vocation trying to determine the original history of the world, and he was basically blacklisted from the scientific community because of the material that he provided evidence for.
Kind of like L.A. Marzulli and all the evidence he finds.
Right. And it's real evidence. It's just the context of that evidence, right? In the terms of what is acceptable for the masses and acceptable for those who become the living extensions. And this is where the academy comes back to, right? We provide context for these discussions. The conversations that we've had privately between the two of us on these issues would get you locked up and thrown in a prison if you were having them in public.
Yeah, definitely they would.
So we're not trying to be the extreme revolutionaries that people think we're all evil and baby sacrificing and whatnot, or God knows whatever they think, right? That's not what we're up to. We're trying to figure out how do we fit in to the world around us, given what we know on accurate history. The ancients were doing these things. We're psychic. We're connecting to these things. But it's not just because we're psychic. We're not. That's just part of the natural physiology of the human animal. Everybody is. That doesn't make us different. What makes us different is that we're willing to be within the synchronous rhythm. We're willing to find out what does that mean for us and the kind of thing that we're doing.
Right.
But it does it without indoctrination, without bullshit. It's like, this is stuff that the individual can discover for themselves.
Right.
Independently from anything what we're doing. But it's when you come together in these groups that you're able to give context for it, because you cannot write all this stuff down. Like, there is too much to put into it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So as these kinds of things go through and we're able to develop these next levels of connection, these next levels of finding, what we are able to do in community outpaces what we would do alone. In 3 years, the academy model has been able to recreate the marketplace for millions of entrepreneurs. It gives foundations for people that otherwise wouldn't have them. And it gives leverage to be able to walk out and create better opportunities than we could do it alone, right? I can't teach on the intricacies of business the same way Damon John can.
Right.
The way that Pete Vargas can, or that Russell Brunson can, because they have a unique look into it. They have a unique mastery over the marketplace that they've created around their object, their thing, this opportunity. And so when we get into these kinds of things, when we get into these kinds of developments, it's for the direct application of these. You know, it's how is this being served to you today so that tomorrow you can get up in your group on YouTube and you can invite them into a challenge that you orchestrate. Who do we need to get invited into your thing so that you can deliver to them over a few day period, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 day, 7 day, whatever, right? So that way what they're doing proves that by the time that they're done with it, they're going to have their entire body aligned or in attunement or what have you to one or all 7 of the Hermetic principles. We could do that. It would be extremely easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
But that now, because it would be extremely easy to do, comes from Pedro, Russell, Pete, all of the leaders. It's a generational thing. So while I'm doing it here, while I'm teaching you how to do it so that you can teach others how to do it, it's already being taught in a bunch of different ways for a bunch of different purposes. But at the end of the day, it's still spellcraft. It's still making the intangible shit tangible.
It's almost like, you cooking. Are you cooking? You're doing witchcraft. Whether you know it or not, you're doing witchcraft. So if you're cooking yourself a meal, don't you get on me for doing witchcraft. Exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Putting something together and you're creating a meal. You're creating things.
Exactly. And it's that kind of development. It's that kind of setup. It's that kind of delivery back into the marketplace that lets something expressly unique happen. Because the experience that I provide for me to you is going to be different from what you receive. Right? Like I'm trying to do all of these things, but you're going to have takeaways that I don't know about. Right? Like there's going to be a phrase that I'll say that'll stick with you versus what I'm trying to think. Right? And so it's that observation afterwards. It's that follow through and follow up. Right? It's like, how do we improve this? How do we fix those gaps? How do we make it not a boring experience? But at the same time, how do we get you learning done? Right? And that becomes the difficulty of all mentorship programs, of all course creation, right? How long do your classes need to be in order for you to get the point across? How much reinforcement do you have to give as a result of that? Do you think that you could have learned as much as you did, both of you, over the last few months, if we had shorter class time?
No, not at all.
Do you think that we need to be like more structured in how we do our weekly meetings? Do we need to have like 5-minute timestamp? Like, all right, you've got the timer set for 5 minutes. Do we need to do it that way? Or because we're still a small grouping, it becomes easier to allow time to just slip away?
No, I still think we should have a set time.
You do?
I'm happy with either. I mean, I love the unstructuredness, 1 minute we're talking about this, then the next minute we're talking about that, and then it's just this whole big thing.
So that's one of those things. Daniel, you really haven't gotten a chance to speak too much to the audience and on this issue, but you've been there just as in step with Mike and hitting me up at all hours of the day in regards to your spellcraft. Like, what is it that you want to do over the course of what you've been thinking about? Like, you've got these localized connections to the community that you're making, right? What kind of stuff do you want to do with it, and how can we help as a reinforcement for that?
Let me think. Well, I've been building these connections and fortifying them, and it's been great so far, and I can only see it, becoming more solidified in the future. Um, Forming a centralized group might be effective, but that takes the willingness of every party involved. Um, like the vampire community that I've integrated into, they're a little more secluded, a little more into the shadows, um, but building those bases are valuable. And what I've received from them and others has been immeasurable.
And so again, it goes back to, I want to create these public groups and I want to call them the hobnobs, right? So that'll be the public venue for what we do for business. So if there's going to be a local party, right? We get all the business owners in the local area together, like we were talking about the other day in the mastermind afterwards, right? Get all your local shopkeepers together, call the event a hobnob, and then get people to talk about their next step in the business, right? In the virtual dinner party with Greg Wells, they call it the thorn question. All right, what's your pain point? You only get 3 minutes to speak about it. You have to talk about it, and then people give you 3-minute response for answers. It was a beautiful model. But in order to be able to license it properly, then we got to pay for it. And that becomes a virtual dinner party. And virtual dinner parties are like masterminds, but they only revolve around 3 questions. They're outstanding. It was an experience that it's like, yes, it is a great community builder and it will fix your problem. Like one problem it will fix immediately. But that's just one way that we can get people's problems fixed, right? So we could run the virtual dinner party to bring new people in and they can get through their crisis as it relates to their spellcraft, right? And then we can do these things in person. But one of the things that I absolutely love is the creation of secret groupings, right? Private groupings that never see the light of day as far as what the world knows about. But inside those groupings, world-changing opportunity comes, right? So it allows for the privacy of what occurs within that group to come together for a higher purpose. It allows them to walk out faith immediately in the marketplace relating to whatever it is their business is, right? And I'm not talking about like the clandestine crime crap. No, fuck all that shit. You motherfucking mafia people can just go fuck off. But what I'm talking about is intentional collaborations that once the collaboration is done, you don't even need to, it's like visiting the local adult store. I'll go back to that because that was my life, right? Is you come in to see me, I'll hook you up with the best vibrator on the planet in relation to the thing that's going to scratch that particular itch, right? But you need one for your wife and you need one for your side piece, right? And you probably want one for you. There was somebody who bought like 4 or 5 toys, like one for his side piece, one for the swinger throuple, like all the people that they were screwing, right? And so you don't tell people when you see them at the grocery store, hey, how'd that thing work out with you and your throuple and your hooker on the side and all these people, right? Like that's not a conversation you have at the grocery store. But when they came to see my shop, that's exactly what I helped them with. That was a safe environment for them to be themselves in whatever way that they were, without judgment. It's like, yes, I will crack a joke at that particular thing because I find it funny. It's like, one's not enough. You have to have variety. There's nothing wrong with it.
Spice of life.
Right? And there are some very interesting people in this world. And I love working with those interesting people. Right? Because you never know what's about to fall out of their face when they're looking for something new. And they're going to stick it somewhere. And when it comes to magic, when it comes to doing these kinds of things, it's very similar to how people try to express their innermost desires physically, right? There are certain things that magic cannot fix. Magic cannot fix autoimmune disease. Magic cannot fix something if you have given your personal effect and your effigies and every bit of blood magic that you, personal effect, right? to your enemies for them to deliver like you to the darkness or what have you. Like there's only one fringy spell that can fix that, and it would be a renaming spell. You have to rename your soul itself to get away from that kind of shit. You have to change your name, you have to change your identity, and you have to change at least 3 vital behaviors about yourself to become a different person in order for those spells of protection to take effect. But that's not something 90% of people are willing to do. They just want the magic and they just want it to work, and they don't want to change themselves. They don't want to change their behavior. They don't want to change their environment. They just want it to change around them and everything to be hunky-dory, and they can go on being the same horrible people they were before.
That's why you need to learn mentalism, so you can change them patterns,
Right?
change that aspect so that you can actually grow into your higher conscience. Enlightenment, Lucifer. Oh, I'm sorry. See, I get carried away.
Don't be sorry, man. This is unapologetically you. Like, this is absolutely what we need to do. You know? And as you're doing these things, as you're coming to become part of this stuff, right? We talked about it yesterday. There is a period where the individual, instead of learning it, starts teaching it. There is a natural transition point that occurs in the journey of the mentee as they become a mentor for someone else. As they learn a new technique over here, they'll start teaching it over here. Why? Because if it's cool enough, if it's good enough, if the technique works enough, you're gonna talk about it over here because this shit is cool and that was neat and it was a fun response. Because it's exciting.
Yep.
It wants to come out of you, right? If it's some boring like 5-point checklist for like this thing, nobody's gonna listen. But if it's I call forth the spirits of the air, and there is a goddamn breeze that shows up out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
That's a different experience for people. That's a different experience between you and nature and the world, but it doesn't have to be scary. But it does need to happen because you need to know the world. It needs to know you. You need to know where you stand in all of creation, right? So this is where I love the Greek magic of form and naming things and calling upon the muses and giving them form through your business process, right? Because while like the dark feminine might be those women in our lives that bring out the dark feelings of our own nature, right? Like whatever they say just sets our emotion off. That's the dark feminine at play, right? Just the same way we have the dark masculine, you know, those guys that whatever word that they're just going to say something and it's going to piss you off no matter what it is. You just want to like pop across the jaw, like that's that dark masculine. And so as it's our responsibility to unfuck our inner being from all of the hate and the bullshit other motherfuckers are spewing, we have to be that next stepping point. We have to take control of it. We have to get our mentalism right. We have to get our, you know, synchronicities, our correspondences, our cause and effects. We have to start looking at that in a very real way.
It's all synchronicity.
And that's the beauty of what we've been doing, is because over the last 5 days, we've proven this is a synchronous action. We've proven everything that we're trying to do individually works, right? Yesterday, you and I, Mike, did that justice spell, right? Daniel simultaneously texted me about this justice spell he was doing.
Oh yeah.
Can't make this stuff up. Just can't. Like, you can't do it. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm a hermetic student.
Right? While at the same time, Daniel was texting me, Keith was also texting us about that one he got. It happened to the 3 of us. Actually, the 4 of us. Because, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God. 3 spells, 4 people. Oh my God. all related around justice and legal work. Like,
Her children ain't screaming for justice, man, let me tell you.
Yeah, and it was funny too. Yeah,
About it. It can't just be us four witches out here doing it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure in other places, many, you know, I have a couple witch friends in Britain that are, you know, like, it's not just here, like, yeah. It's not bad.
it's just what I find most interesting though, is that we're all working with the same kind of basic operating system, right? We're all
Right.
hooked into the same current. And so the same current is manifesting itself as similar spells that we get requested to do in that day or that afternoon. Or like if we do a big divination ritual, Mike, you get hit up for divination spells. You know, like that justice thing, the fact that Daniel got hit with justice requests, the same thing that Keith getting justice work. We're doing justice spells. Like it's just legal. This is the week of legal magic, apparently. Like it's one of the ancient forms of the sorcerer's job description, right? You have to either unfuck or fuck up court cases and the slow and the will of people. You get, you know, on all the stuff that goes with it. That's one of the ancient classifications of spells. Like Geiger's work, the curse tablets and binding spells of the ancient world, right? There's an entire section dedicated to that. If you look up spells, charms, and magic, there's an entire section of that. And it breaks it down to culture, right? In every culture, there is legal work. In every culture, there is healing work, right? And again, yesterday, that herbal wisdom. So when Phyllis had a problem and she was asking, you know, she was talking about this guy that, you know, we went to the birthday party for, he had some issues physiologically going on and it started a conversation. Well, that conversation extended into recommendations of a plant yesterday, you know, the lemon ball. That was the first thing that I sent her as far as information goes, and it's the first words out of Mike's mouth yesterday.
that's funny.
No, that's synchronicity, brother.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny considering with the legal thing, the charges that the person who I got off had
Yeah.
was insane. It was like, from what I was told, possession of a controlled substance, intent to deliver, a myriad of other things, a misdemeanor gun charge. Like there's a lot of stuff, like a lot. And I was like, those are like serious things. Like that's like felony level. But he was released within 24 hours, and within 3 hours of me doing my thing, I was like, shit.
Yeah.
That's results, right? Talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Man.
was just someone who sells weed here in Idaho, but they're super, super like big on that. Maybe the gun charge, that's pretty iffy, but you know, they make their stop in Oregon, pick up a bunch of like carts and whatnot, bring them back, sell them off, hoopla hoopla. But he got caught up in it, and I was like,
That's a mess. They shouldn't be doing that. You should not be crossing state lines with that shit. Why do people do that stupid shit? No.
yeah,
No.
yeah,
No, that shit should not cross state lines. Sorry. He deserves what he's gonna get for that one.
oh yeah. I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like he has the hearing in December. I got him released within 24 hours, and within a few of what I did. Um, whatever happens at the hearing happens. But if I don't do anything else, he's gonna get a major slap.
Yeah.
So he can have fun with that one. I did what I needed to do,
Yeah,
what
man.
was requested.
Yeah, that's gooey. That's a gooey mess. And just be careful moving forward, because if you invite these energies in, right, you're doing these legal, you're doing the stuff to slow it down. If you're not justified, that work will with you so hard. It'll just screw with you. If anything you do is out of congruency during the period while that spell is active, it will ruin all of the bad opportunities. Like if you get involved in something that's going to take you out of truth, out of a state of truth, right? From that one spell that's in the Grimoire of Arts. If you were to use that one, right? It would evoke truth for a situation so that whatever happens, the motivations and the outcomes behind it, they're based on the understanding that you have of what truth is. So if it's an incomplete understanding of truth, holy shit, be careful. This is why I recommend that you do thorough divination. Like if your friend asks you for further help, because I'm pretty sure that that's going to happen, because that's how it usually always happens in these situations. Make sure that you've got these things done.
Yeah,
that
make
you've
sure
got
that
these
it's
divinations set in place and you understand, like go through it, read it multiple different ways, right?
make sure it's also good to proceed, etc. Like the
Exactly.
way is clear, no brambles in the path.
Precisely.
Not gonna step on any thorns, but I was just surprised after hearing what these massive charges were that they were released like that, especially not even just like the possession of controlled substances, but like the gun charges and whatnot. I'm like, damn, and he just got let off the hook, just like, hey, have a good time. See you in December.
Jesus.
Pretty big.
It is, yeah, that's
I mean, carrying like I think 3 grams of weed and like maybe I know the same is for like meth because my mother, but oh my God, like you're done type of thing,
right.
like so
Yeah.
carrying all of that like pounds at a time, like a case full of cards, like dude, and you
Holy,
just got off the hook.
holy shit, no, like, no. No means
That's
no,
like,
motherfucker. Like, don't
yeah,
do that. That is
that's
bad.
like that's massive felony levels. And I was surprised after hearing that. And I was like, oh wow. And they really just let him off. I guess my shit really worked.
Yeah,
Damn.
it
Yeah,
provides
I'm
a leverage opportunity, but now it's up to the individual. Are they going to stand in their own rights as to why they did that? You know, Mike's case is different because Mike was trying to preserve his health.
of
Mike was
course.
trying to do his situation because he has to do something without the PGRs in the weed.
Yeah, Mike's is majorly different. His involved the extortion from the state,
Yeah,
a pure basis for just helping his health, not delivering or distributing, nothing.
right. And so the
Opposite spectrums.
like, oh man, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, dude fucked up so hard. Like,
No, no, seriously. Like you should have, like that's big boy stuff. Especially when I learned that he would just have all of that on him at the same time. Like, bro, why would you do that?
yeah,
Like,
just
morality aside, you're carrying all of this, just, you know, God, that's like a complete lack of safety.
right. And as a complete lack of safety and as a complete lack of thought or care to his friends, to his family, and his life that he's imploding, like those bad decisions, unfortunately, happen more often than not.
Oh yeah.
And when occultists, when people that do magic, when people are in this kind of a lifestyle that we lead as people that help others, right? We're going to run into that a lot. Like this might be the first time that is this the first time you're dealing with this in such a major way?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, let me think. When it comes to legality, besides the case with my mother, this is the second one.
Okay, so yeah, it's that this kind of energy, these dark traits, right? Again, it's the corrupted masculine. These energies exist within the world, and it's our job to balance what we can with them, right? It's like make friends with it to hopefully deter them from crime. But if they're already doing crime, there's nothing we can do to help. Like this is where we can't help those that won't help themselves. We can't do this for people that don't want useful things done. You know, and if they're
Right.
doing that in the beginning, if they're coming into this life that we're helping them through their difficult problems with, right? Helping to create a community, helping them to create a shift in their own personal economy, right? Giving them means to connect with mentors and millionaires and billionaires and all the things, right? In ethical ways, while at the same time they're doing crime. No, no. So
Right.
it becomes a grief management thing. It becomes a community separation thing. And so this becomes one of the biggest challenges of our community, is to figure out how do we equip you with the resources of education, of secondary mentors that would understand this situation, right? Because one of the things that we want to do is we want to create programs so that you can teach hermetic thought in the prisons, Mike, so that cats like your friend Daniel will have an opportunity to get their head right, so that they understand that they don't need to deal drugs in order to get anywhere in life. But dude was dealing so much drugs, he fucked off his
Yeah.
life, and he gets to get put in a box for the rest of it. No, like this is just a
Right.
situation he shouldn't have been in the first place.
Right. And I don't know the guy personally. I just know him as the brother of my friend,
Right,
different apples, but
right. But it's very far, very, very distant trees, but it's all within your community, right?
right.
You don't just like this shit just finds you. Like I can't spit and not hit someone who hasn't either been connected to the mob, been in some form of gang, or done some sort of horrible thing with some back in the past, like either for the government or whatnot. It's these continuations, right? It's not the energy of life that we're exposing ourselves to this stuff. It's that through our rhythm of life, we're put in the path of these kinds of people. So when we encounter them, we have the opportunity to help them out of their bullshit without them being judged. Right? I don't care why someone, like some members of the Brotherhood, had issues with extremely racist past, right? Doesn't matter what color of your skin is, you've had a racist past, right? But if you come out of that and you're not a douchebag with it, and you understand culture and you understand the tribal life, let's talk. All right. Moving away from hate, moving out of racism, moving out of bad decisions, moving out of drug, like that's an entirely different conversation than trying to use herbs and nature to heal your body and to heal your mind and to heal yourself. But these are still part of the very real things that we encounter every day as a cultist. Every day as people go through their life and they expect us to be able to fix their shit, right? Because in some cases we can. In some cases, the energy works to be, we can create a blessing that works out great. But at the same time, we create an opportunity for those things to pass us by. To say, hey, no, that's something that's not my department. I gotta bounce, right? But by knowing who handles those situations, by knowing who deals with those conditions, there might be possibilities of spellcraft. There might be possibilities of manifestation. Right? So only with community support does that become viable. So I appreciate y'all joining us today here on the public version of this. And I will see you all at our next challenge. And there, stay tuned for these events and stay tuned for the links for the new group that Michael has created, our Divine Sorcerer. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.